All right, and welcome everyone to another edition of the Blue versus Green Show. I am Gabe, also joined by one of our regular hosts, Jose. Walt couldn't be with us this week. He was with us last week, so I guess I'm subbing you in for Walt, I guess, to represent the Jets line, the green line. So once again, welcome everyone. Don't forget to like, rate, share, and subscribe, comment, hit us up. We all want to be our own support group, especially this weekend, as it seems that the seasons are pretty much officially over for one team and pretty over for another team. Jose, how are you?
Uh, I'm doing okay. I couldn't make it last week. It kind of sucked because I could have gotten to celebrate, and I got
And
yeah.
Tina's already making an appearance.
She's like, just end this shit now after the shit show that this week was. But I'm doing okay. Yeah, like last week, I couldn't make it, but this week we get to commiserate our teams together. I guess. I mean, that's all. That's all there is to say. I'm doing okay. The teams are not.
Yeah, well, let's get right into it. It's going to be kind of straightforward discussion. There's not a lot of good to take away, but let's go ahead and start with the Giants. There was it's hard to find anything good really about the Giants, but I did find a couple things. I thought that even though the fact that we ended up losing, and I felt like we were pretty in there for most of the game until the later half of the third quarter, and of course the fourth quarter. Saints completely took it away from us. But one thing that I found that was good was I thought that the coaching was really good overall. Even though the players didn't execute, I thought that Dable again kind of proved that he is going to be the coach of the future for the Giants. Under the circumstances, it seemed like he got a lot of his he got back into the rhythm of the Dable that we all knew and loved from last season, especially in the last 3 weeks, 4 weeks. And again, even though the results didn't show today, I thought that he did a decent job coaching. The bad was execution. The Giants went back to dropping passes at critical moments. The defense was I thought was okay, but I think that the offense was just the Saints outsmarted the Wink defense this week. They felt confused early on in the game. A lot of confusion on the defense, and the ugly was we had a real good opportunity to take a nice big leap into the playoff run that we are still in, and we kind of squandered it away. We had the Packers lost today, the Falcons lost today, so that kind of helps us in standings. But not capitalizing on their losses by being able to take down the Saints really kind of sets us behind. And now the destiny is no longer in our hands. And yeah, that's it. The group still felt like they're together. They all felt like they were fighting. They were just neutralized and didn't execute. So those are my general takeaways from the game today. What about you? I know that we were the other sucky part. The ugly part was really, if I got to add to it, is the fact that the Jets and Giants going on at the same time makes it impossible to truly get a full grasp of both games. I did the best that I could to watch as much of the Jets as I could. And I know that you did the best you could to watch as much as the Giants that you could. So tell me a little bit about what you thought the good, bad, and ugly on your end for the Giants were.
So I must have had a rough feeling today because like I woke up like a little dizzy this morning. I wasn't feeling great. I did a little drinking last night. Actually, I went out to what's called a yurt, which is like a small tent.
Oh, yeah, yurt.
Kind of a glamorous sort of tent, like a living tent. I think it's originally from Mongolia or something like that. But
yeah.
That said, I didn't feel super great this morning. I was trying to decide where I was going to watch the game because I couldn't watch it at home. I was like, am I going to go to a bar and have more drinks? No, I don't want to do that. I was like, am I going to pay to like actually watch these games? You know what? There are 4 weeks left. If I add NFL Sunday ticket to my YouTube TV, that's like $73. It's cheaper than going to a bar for 3 out of the last 4 weeks because there's only one televised game.
Mm.
A Sunday night game coming up. So I decided to bite the bullet. I actually got to see both games in multi-view, which is probably worse because I got to absorb a lot of it. I would switch back and forth, probably like you would more often, to see the offenses try to execute because the defenses are going to do okay. I mean, so the good takeaways of the defense was okay. I mean, it wasn't great. It kind of let it get away at the end of the game, but when the offense isn't doing much of anything because of the offensive line, which we'll get to, Devito showed he's still a tough SOB and a decent quarterback even under pressure. But like the offensive line and Barkley did not do well today. Barkley was struggling because of the offensive line partially, but
Right.
that nobody could really get anything going. And the ugly was that what I think was a little bit of a late dirty hit on Devito, and the kind of thing that illustrates the fact that this kid is tough, but so was Daniel Jones initially, and so were a lot of Giants quarterbacks initially, until the constant pressure from playing behind these O-lines that just aren't getting it done. The constant pressure that just gets to these kids eventually. And it got to Devito today. And that hit, even he himself, like, you figure that, he looked a little rattled because he was pointing to his helmet as he was walking off the sidelines, trying to laugh it off a little bit, but he looked really rough after that hit, right? Like, for a moment, he kind of looked like he went limp. Maybe he was playing it up a little bit. But yeah, like, it was an okay game for a bit, just a slog, and then it got away. And
let's talk a little bit about the QB, about Tommy DeVito, and not just Tommy DeVito, but Tyrod Taylor. Tommy DeVito had to be pulled out to check for concussions. As much as he tried his best not to get pulled out, he didn't want to get pulled out. He was showing obvious frustration that they were even forcing him to go into the tent and go through concussion protocol testing and stuff. He was able to come back, which is great. Again, shows his toughness. But we saw Tyrod Taylor out there for a few snaps. He had, even for the short time he was there, it shows that we have decent backups. Tyrod was able to execute a couple throws, a couple of plays while, even though it was kind of the end of that first half. And DeVito was able to kind of make it out for the second half. But what's funny? I in all the DeVito madness that has been the last 3 to 4 weeks, well, 4 weeks really, I kind of noticed one thing. His stat lines don't look that dissimilar to Daniel Jones. I mean, if I gave you last week's stat lines where DeVito threw for just under 200 yards, rushed a lot, had a rushing touchdown, I believe, almost had a rushing touchdown, I believe. But just no interceptions, and he didn't get sacked, which was amazing. It was great. But the stat lines, if I didn't tell you who the quarterback was, you wouldn't be able to tell me if it was DeVito or Daniel Jones. And it goes to show that I think that the issues with the Giants really doesn't lie too much with the quarterbacks, I think, because when Daniel Jones or DeVito have good protection, and the play calling is right and everything's kind of firing on all cylinders, we win games, and we do them. They're fun and creative and exciting and all of that, and then contrasting that with this week where we went back to the same old Giants of the revolving O-line, where we allowed 7 sacks again, and 7 bad sacks. DeVito took a lot of hits, not just that hit where he took a slide, and I thought that was uncalled for. They called it a clean hit. I don't exactly see how it's a clean hit, because even though from the look of it, the way that they explained it was he took a hit to the back of his body and then his head hit the floor. That's incorrect. Okay, he did take a hit to the back of his body, but I forgot who delivered the hit, but the defender, he basically shoulder checked the back of DeVito's head with his shoulder, and that's where the impact came. And then from that hit to the back of the helmet with the shoulder, and then the hitting his head, smashing down into the ground, that's where the biggest impact of the hit came from. I thought that it was a bit of it was a late hit, I think. But aside from that, some of the other sacks he took, he looked like his knee was a little banged up, his ankle was a little banged up on a bunch of those hits and sacks and stuff, and he was limping off, moving around a little bit gingerly. I do actually think that the late hit on the slide affected him, because when he came out on the second half, he looked a little bit slower, not as sharp, not moving as quickly, and I thought that was probably more of an effect because of the hit than it was because of the game itself. After seeing him early on in the third quarter, in my mind, I actually thought that they should have put Terrell Taylor back in there, because I think that it was obvious that he might have said all the right things in the concussion protocol test in order to get back on the field. But I think it was very obvious that it was a different Tommy DeVito in the second half than the first half. So this just goes to show that, like, we really, really need to do something about this O-line, because it is I think that stat numbers and eye test, it's the worst O-line in the league. It's terrible. We can't create openings for any run plays. We can't protect the quarterback long enough. DeVito has, again, to his toughness, he's had to kind of take it into his own hands and give us some good rushing plays. Let me take a look real quick. The exact stats, how many yards rushing he had. He had 4 carries for 36 yards, but there were 4 scrambling carries for 36 yards.
Yeah.
And then when you contrast that to Saquon Barkley, our top running back, 9 carries for 14 yards. I mean, that's insane. The fact that we can't get anything going on the run game, and it's primarily because of the offensive line. So that I think the offensive line is the ugliest part of this Giants game. So,
I mean, you kind of look at it this way, right? Like, there are games where the quarterback gets sacked 4-5 times, and like they're kind of like more maybe kind of get wrapped up sacks, or the quarterback falls down because he knows he can't escape, and like he's not getting beaten up like DeVito, and you'll get to the Jets game later, but like he's not getting like completely beaten up like DeVito did today, where the sacks are coming immediately, where the blocks are busted right off the line. And you talk about the run game too, right? Like, Barkley is, I make the comparison. I'm going to make that comparison that I feel like with the Jets, they talked about Breece Hall not being able to get those gritty yards. Barkley is certainly better at that, but today he couldn't get any of that going, like, at all. Any separation in the flats, any separation anywhere in the passing game of any kind, right? So the fact that he couldn't even accomplish that today because of how bad the offensive line was, not even Barkley, who's been able to pull off those yards all year, could get those 3-4 yards and break those 10-yard runs to do what he needed to do.
And Barkley had a
game all around.
Barkley had an amazing reception. He had this amazing reception that he caught with one hand, connected it to his shoulder pad, made sure that he fought for that. A pass that could have easily have been an intercepted pass for a first down, but that pass came because DeVito was completely under pressure, and DeVito just would not relent. He didn't want to throw the ball away. He kept the play alive long enough to find Barkley and make that play. But that we can't live off of making plays under such crazy duress. Because then it means that the only way that we could win is if our defense is at 100%. And the defense, unfortunately, had no takeaways. I think the one good thing from DeVito too was that we didn't have any turnovers on offense, no interceptions, no fumbles the entire game, which goes to show that the game was there to be won. Had we done our job on defense and protect a little bit more on offense. It's a shame because moving forward, we have quarterback questions, but we don't have that big of quarterback questions, and we still have a season that's alive, but it's barely alive. I mean, we're treading water, and the water is up to our neck right now. We're very quickly about to go underwater. It's nice to know that our season is still technically alive, but it's hard to look forward to anything when we have the Eagles twice in the next 3 weeks. So it's gonna be a bit of a rough stretch coming up.
I feel like, looking forward in that way, like there's really not much of a mathematical chance at this point that the Giants are going to make the playoffs. And when you look at it from an emotional standpoint, you feel like having to beat the Eagles at their best, being one of the best teams in the league. I mean, it's arguably between them, the
all right,
Cowboys, the 49ers.
but let me say that. Let me ask you though: are the Eagles truly at their best? I think that even though they have like an amazing record this season, the fact that they're not considered one of the best teams of the season, and they're winning their games in some very gritty fashion. They're and Jalen Hurts is now questionable for Monday's game. I know that it's due to an illness, but there's been rumors that he's probably injured and just hiding it. Well, I don't know. I mean, we're gonna go into the next week, and it's gonna be for the Giants. The Eagles, they're already in the playoffs, right? I mean, they haven't officially clinched, I believe, but there's no question that they're gonna be in the playoffs. But for the Giants, we're gonna be coming out there hungry. We're gonna be looking for the revenge game. Jalen Hurts is possibly injured or hurt and not playing to his best. I think that the Eagles last year were much better than the Eagles this year. I think, listen, if you guys can do it at least once this season, I feel like we can do it at least once this season also. So if we win out the next 3 games, there's a decent chance, depending on what happened with the Rams moving forward and the Saints, the Aints.
So yeah, Philadelphia, apparently they have clinched their playoff berth, right? So there is reason for them to say pull Jalen Hurts out of the last couple of games, even if he's not that injured. Say if he's even slightly injured, to protect him for the playoffs, and say, we've already clinched. We'll sacrifice whatever home field or whatever else we might be necessarily wanting, and see if their backup Marcus Mariota can get it done, right? Last year's former starter for the Falcons. So, I mean, it's possible, but like it's really one of the worst situations of being on the outside looking in, because I mean, there's a lot of other good teams that are vying for this at this point. Like New Orleans isn't a bad team. I feel like the NFC South is actually not the worst division. I feel like they're all above average teams that just beat the hell out of each other, which is why they're all sitting around that average point. Because if you look at how they play against other teams and other divisions, they don't often do that terribly. Not all of them, but the Falcons have done fairly well outside of their division a couple of times, New Orleans as well. So, I mean, are the Eagles, even with Mariota as a starter, worse than the Saints, who just beat you all this week? I mean, Kamara is a fantastic player, but like offensively,
I don't think that they're worse than the Saints. I think that when it comes to the NFC South, I think that the Buccaneers and the Saints are not given the credit that they're due. But I think that the Falcons may be getting more credit than they're due, and the Panthers suck. So that's more of like a 50-50. There's 2 teams that are good and 2 teams that are terrible, I think, down there. With Desmond Ridder, just I don't know, he's making it happen, and he's in the play, and the Falcons are in the playoff picture, but it's I think a little bit by happenstance. But the thing that it scares me the most is I think that the Seahawks are going to be able to make it. They're the biggest threat. If the Seahawks win against the Eagles on Monday night, they have the easiest schedule, I think, coming up, because I think they play. Let me see who they play. They play
the Seahawks. They are coming up against the Titans, the Steelers, who are free falling right now.
Yeah, exactly. And then the Cardinals.
So after that Monday night game against Philadelphia, I mean, Seattle against a Marcus Mariota led Philadelphia Eagles. Wasn't what's his name? My good buddy over, Geno Smith, also injured though.
I believe he might. I think that he is injured, but he's in for Monday night. So Jalen Hurts is questionable, but I believe that Geno Smith is still going to be in for Monday night. I think the Eagles is going to be their toughest test in the next 4 games. If they can beat the Eagles, Not sure that they can. I would still pick the Eagles in that game, regardless of who's under center for the Eagles. But if they win against the Eagles, then they just need to beat the Steelers and the Cardinals, and they're in. I think so. And they would have the wild card spot, I think, above us. So
you want to steal at least one from Philadelphia and beat the Rams?
now, but that's the thing.
Rams are not a
We
great
essentially
team,
have to win out. We have to win out. The way that I look at it, okay, I look at it as like we need to beat the Eagles with Jalen Hurts because he's going to play. Right? No, but see, here's the thing. I think that we'll play the Eagles. If we can beat the Eagles and Jalen Hurts, then by the time that we face the Eagles again at the very end of the season, I think that the Eagles are going to clinch their playoff berth. I think they're banged up enough that they probably won't start Jalen Hurts, and that's going to be an opportunity to beat them as well. And then who is it that we got in between that?
The Rams.
That's right. And then we got to beat the Rams. So I think if we win out,
are kind of like the beat random teams on a random week kind of team this year at the same time. So
the thing that sucks though, the reason that it becomes slightly mathematically impossible is because next week the Rams got the Saints, right? So, or rather on Thursday. Either one of those teams gets a win, and that pretty much shuts us out. That's why we needed to beat the Saints. So even though we're not mathematically eliminated, it's the fact that the Saints and the Rams, who are both ahead of us, that's what kind of kills us. So for us to be able to get into the playoffs, the Rams need to win that game on Thursday, and then they need to lose the rest of their schedule, and then we need to win out against the Rams and the Eagles. And I believe that gives us the final wild card spot
at an 8-9 finish to finish out.
You know what's crazy? I was talking about I was talking about how like crazy the season is and how ridiculous it is, and agreeing with Tom Brady that I do also feel like there is a lot of mediocrity in the game. I think that it's because the game may be changing a little bit, so it's a little bit more in transition, where we're seeing a lot more. We're seeing a lot more trick plays. We're seeing a lot more running quarterbacks. We're seeing smaller linemen, faster tight ends, and the whole nine, right? So it seems like it does feel like there is some mediocrity, but one could also say that, the league is a little bit more balanced because look, there's 30 teams, maybe not now, but before today, before the games were played, there were 30 teams that were in the hunt for the playoffs. As of today, 30 teams this late in the season. And that means that every single team has a fighting chance, and every single fan base has something to root for this late in the season already, which isn't that bad. I think now officially it's probably at around 26 teams because the Commanders were eliminated, the Jets were eliminated. I think that by tomorrow we'll have like a couple other eliminations. But still, that's an insane number of teams that are still in the hunt for a playoff spot this late in the season. That's crazy. So maybe the Amazon analytics that built this schedule did it the right way to keep things interesting this far in.
I think it might have been the Tennessee, the Jets, New England, Washington, Arizona, Carolina, or that would put it at about 26. Those are the teams that have all been eliminated
right
completely.
Yeah.
Mathematical contention to make any kind of run to the playoffs. So even if the Jets win out at this point, which they won't, most likely, they won't make it anymore. But we're hoping that the Giants can win out at this point, and maybe
a couple of
times.
So even though I'm wearing black because it feels like it is a little bit of a funeral for the season, we are still alive. So I want to hold off on any kind of talk about the off season, what needs to be done, even though it's obvious that we need to be targeting the all line specifically, but we're still in it. I think that it's okay from a fan perspective to still fantasize and dream about the future. But one team that doesn't have a future, as we just said, the Jets officially eliminated, and I think that we can officially start talking about the offseason. Jose, I mean, this is all you. This is your territory. God, even seeing that number is so ugly. 0-30. Oh, man, it sucks to have been buried the way that you guys were buried today.
We got the flip side of last week almost, but worse, because last week was a 36 win, and this week was a 30-0 loss. That was 24-0 at the half. I mean, you had the comments that the rumors, maybe the unsubstantiated comments, who really knows like what it was at this point. Maybe we'll never know the truth about what Zach Wilson was saying about not wanting to play, allegedly, right? And one of the reasons being that he didn't want to get hurt because he'd already been told that he was going to get traded away from the Jets. And what the hell was the point of him going in there and possibly, I don't know, maybe getting a concussion around halftime or whatever the hell it was that happened over there? Although
dude, that was so
thing, though, right? Because he supposedly has a concussion, but he's not going to be in concussion protocols. I mean,
dude, I don't know. That was
dehydration
first, bro. So
you hear that?
I didn't hear that specifically. What I heard, and this is coming from like at the halftime show, what they were saying, the reason that he left, or no, it was just before halftime. It was the sideline reporter was reporting that they put in Simeon with I think a little over a minute left, or at the 2-minute mark. Yeah. They took Zach out, and the report was that, oh, he's going to the locker room early. You know, he wants to go in there and like just, you know, get rehydrated and kind of see if he's ready to come back out in the second half. That is so I've never heard of someone saying like, oh, like, you know, we're going to send him into the locker room early to rehydrate, you know, because if it's concussion protocol, you go into the blue tent first and then you go into the locker room. No, that doesn't make sense. So I feel like, you know what I really think that might have happened? And this is all obviously, you know, speculation. You know, this is my own opinion. I didn't hear this from anywhere. I didn't see this online anywhere. I think Zach Wilson went to Saleh and was like, you know what? I think I'm not feeling it. You know, I think it might be better to put Simeon in. I think that Saleh, you know, I think that he went to Saleh and was basically he quit on the job.
We'll never really know. I mean, I have no idea what the hell is happening there. But when you're getting absolutely assaulted in basically a similar way, because like I said, I was watching the games on multi-view, and you know, okay, fine. So we're gonna talk about it like from the perspective of the good, the bad, the ugly. The Jets defense was okay today, even though I think the bad part of it was I don't really understand why with Tyreek Hill out of the game you didn't have Sauce Gardner shadowing Jalen Waddle everywhere he went, because Waddle was carving up the Jets defense today. You know, he's the only man really out there of their wide receivers, because they have a few injuries of their own. But I mean, just the offensive line play was unbelievably bad. I mean, the quarterbacks were bad, everything was bad, but the offensive line was ugly. I mean, I got to see a little bit of some other games today, and you're probably right that anecdotally, by the numbers, by the eye test, like the Giants are the worst offensive line in the league, but sure as hell, we're like not really that far behind. We got to be 30 or something like that. I mean, that was disgusting to watch. I think a little bit like, I'll let you get to it in a second, but what I was talking about the, you know, getting those really big sacks that rattle you versus like kind of falling down a couple, like Tua, I think, fell down once in the game to avoid getting a big hit and avoid.
Yeah, it's the only sack. It's the only sack that you guys were able to
be the only one
get on them,
right? But yeah, go ahead, get to it. What was your opinion of what you saw?
Well. See, here's the thing. Like, I do kind of want to go back, because it's funny that you mentioned the whole like defensive side. I didn't see any defensive snaps for the Jets, because I was going back and forth between the Giants and the Jets. I was sticking to watching the offenses as much as possible, because I wanted to at least see what Zach would do this week and stuff. So it sucks to hear that like that Sauce wasn't able to like really perform, or rather that he was possibly misused. But from the offensive side, here's the thing about the way that I look at it. Yes, both offensive lines are really bad. They're terrible. Like, there's no, you can't even really compare. But I think that the difference is
worse than the class.
I think the difference is that on the Giants, I feel like I just get the sense from the interviews, from everything aside from, and the fact that we were going on a 3-game winning streak. I get the sense that the team is a little bit more together and fighting a little harder. Whereas with the Jets, I feel like they've gone through this all season over and over and over again. And I think that they just end up quitting earlier. They fight not as hard to do their job. And that might be one of the reasons why the offensive line is as bad as it is. Um, but then again, I'm not 100% sure, right? Like, I think that, like, for example, Tommy DeVito taking these like hard, atrocious hits, a lot of that's because, tackle, the line's being busted, defense is being busted. They're getting blindsided and stuff like that. Whereas with the Jets, I feel like it's a combination of that as well as a lot of indecision on the quarterback's part. I don't know how many sacks Zach took versus Trevor Siemian, but I feel like it's just lack of effort is, I think, what I noticed more from the offensive line on the Jets.
So
I think,
the lack of
but
effort
again, I have to like admit that I
mostly on
didn't,
like play
I would
action
my
play.
eyes. Excuse me.
I feel like it was a lot of like, so what it kind of boiled down to, I feel like, was lack of execution, lack of effort, definitely more so than the Giants. I think this is a hot take, but I think, like, on paper, right, the Jets are supposed to have a slightly more talented offensive line than the Giants do on paper, right? At the beginning of the season, that's probably something that we would have, that, like, I don't know, PFF or somebody else would have said, not a hell of a lot better. But, like, yeah, the effort wasn't there, the execution wasn't there, but also, like, it feels like again, there's just not a lot of adjustment. And this is mostly on Salah, you have to say, right? Because the coaching doesn't make the adjustments that they need to make. Last week against the Titans, or against the Texans, we had this great game plan in the second half, and we kind of made these great adjustments. We switched to more 12 personnel, more 13 personnel, a lot more play action, a lot of the things that Zach executes really well. The offense executes really well, something that Breece Hall is good at. Dalvin Cook, like, everybody kind of thrives in that environment. Then you get Ruckert out on the field more. Like, things just work really well there. They started that game this way. That's one of the first things that, if you looked at the thread when we started the games today, that I commented on was, oh, hey, look, they're coming out in 12 personnel. Like, I think there were 2 tight ends out there. Like, all right, they're getting started with the right offensive mindset. And I think they did a run pass, kind of, which is okay. Again, why necessarily they're doing it that way? And then the team doesn't make any appropriate adjustments. And it goes both ways, because you didn't get to see as much of the defensive side of the ball, but, like, it was really immediate that DJ Reed wasn't going to be able to keep up with Waddle, because I think it was on one of the first offensive plays of the game, he got burned entirely by Waddle for like a 60-yard touchdown. Like, he fell down trying to stop him from getting the pass. Waddle catches it and just burns him to the end zone. So it was immediately apparent that he wasn't going to be able to keep up with him, and you should probably have Sauce kind of play, the shadow on Waddle. So the coaching just didn't make any kinds of appropriate adjustments this week. And on the offensive side, to kind of address the offensive line, they kept going to the play action, which, again, like I said, was a fantastic last week, because it's something that the Jets offense does well, but it's when the run game is doing something. And the run game hadn't been established at all. They were doing play action on like the 3rd, 4th play of the game plan. I didn't really understand what they were doing. And, like, the fact that they're not making these adjustments, I think, is one of the biggest failings of the Jets coaching staff. And I mean, you could say the Jets in general, right? Because anybody on that offense can say, like, hey, maybe this is not working, we should try something else. It's happened before on the sideline. We've had supposed examples of that, like, Breece Hall or somebody like Aaron Rodgers calling something out and saying, like, hey, let's try something else. Maybe not Aaron Rodgers, but we've had examples of this. So it's really frustrating to see that again. But this week.
I think that is a symptom of the season, though, because I think that what most likely is going on this late in the season is you're not making the adjustments necessarily or primarily because you've only seen, kind of one scheme kind of work. And And if you look at what adjustments you can make, you have to have evidence of those adjustments having worked before. And if you're going if you're trying to change it up now this week compared to how you guys have been playing all season, you already know what doesn't work or hasn't worked for the entire season. So it's like, in a way, it's almost like chicken. I don't want to say chicken and egg, but it's just like, I don't know where the confidence would come to make the adjustment. If it's like, all right, well, that adjustment didn't work all season, why should I do it now?
Sure. But like
You know,
something like the Waddle, not making the adjustment on
yeah, I
having
mean,
somebody else
you put
cover
sauce on
Waddle.
Waddle, but
It's just
then
lazy.
does it open up the other side then for the Dolphins?
I mean,
I
but the
suppose you
Dolphins don't
could
really have
you could say
anybody
like it
else
doesn't
that's
hurt to try, right?
as much of a threat. You know what I mean? Like with
Yeah,
Tyreek Hill out, I mean, they have a solid tight end, but they I think they're down to like their fourth or fifth wide receiver because of injuries right now. So they're
yeah,
not really thriving in that department. Like I
yeah.
think
Well,
those are the kind of things that are just really, really obnoxious and just don't make a lot of sense with the way the
yeah.
adjustments on defense. And again, like I don't really understand like why they didn't go to a little bit more of what they did with Simeon in the second half, even though he had his own problems. Like earlier on in the game.
I
I mean, maybe
honestly,
it's like you said, maybe Zach gave up, but like I just don't see
I
anything
think
happening in the first two quarters to see what's out there and play to what's out there from the Jets coaching staff.
so. The thing is, I don't want to beat a dead horse. You already know where I stand on Zach Wilson and where I stand on the backups that you did have, because you don't have Boyle anymore. But for me, the truth is that I thought that it was quickly apparent that that I already have my answer on Zach, and I felt like it was a little bit proven today. And the reason I say that is because even though Simeon came in on just like the last 2 minutes or last minute of the first half, in that 1 minute, he already had uh, better offensive play than Zach Wilson had in the entire first half. And then you stack on top of that how he performed in the second half, even though he still didn't perform good. I don't even want to say great. I don't even want to say good. I don't think that he did good really at all. It was still serviceable, and it's kind of one of those things where, like, okay, that's great that it was serviceable in the second half, but you guys were all the Dolphins are already kind of running away with the game, 24-0 coming out. It makes it hard to want to fight when it does feel like a lot of the Jets have already given it up. And I think that I'd made this comment in the group chat. I had actually made this comment earlier to Walt, where this is why I think that Zach is, and I've said it all season long. Okay, he wears the red dress. That red shirt is the red dress. Okay, he wears the red dress. He shows the team a ton of good stuff in practice. Why? Because there's no stakes in practice. And last week he had that amazing game. Why? Because there's literally no stakes. There was zero stakes in that game. The stadium was empty because everyone knew that there was nothing really to play for. And what does Zach do? He goes out there and has a 300 pass game. It was over 300 yards. Yeah. I believe so.
300. It was like 301. Like
yeah, something like that. Yeah, he had just. It was the first time in his career, or first time this season.
No, not the first time in his career. First time this season.
Right? No,
that was his fourth 300.
It's got to be first time this season. Then
his career. I think he had two last year, or two his first year, one year last year, something like that.
Right. So you look at that, and the reason I think is because I think that Zach performs when there's literally zero pressure. I think seeing a stadium that was empty was easy for Zach to play and perform. And I think that the reason he didn't perform this week was less about the Dolphins, although there is a very specific reason why I think that it sucked that you guys played the Dolphins this close together. I think it was also because he now has all the pressure of his performance, his own performance. Maybe there was a ton of pressure before to fill Aaron Rodgers' shoes, to be the he's the number 2 overall pick, being in New York. Maybe all of that pressure was already gone. But now, after the performance from last week, everybody having faith in him, they're like, you know what? He is good. Look, he can do this again. Just do half of what you did last week. He's now going out there, I think, and feeling like now I have to live up to my own hype from last week. And I think that ended up freezing him in a few positions.
We've done this to death. But, like, again, what do you expect anyone to do when, like, his first 11 snaps, he was hurried 8 times? One of the offensive linemen got 2 penalties in a row. Like the first sack, the first fumble, absolute mess. I agree. After that, the kid was running for his life the entire time. He only got 11 throws in the first half. Like, again, I'm not trying to ride some train to say that Zach is the future of the Jets team. But when you don't have anything going for you on the offensive line, when literal blocks were busted, and the announcers are talking about how like he doesn't even have a second. Sometimes
Right.
I think I
Yeah.
saw at least 2 blocks where he was smothered in less than 1 second, and at least 1 block where he was in the pocket and then with nowhere to step up because the pocket immediately collapsed on top of him, and like that was basically it. So
And the
again,
thing is,
not the future, but it's just I get that the idea is that the quarterback is always the solution, but when Devito has a bad game, it's not about Devito, it's about the offensive line. When Zach Wilson has a bad game, it's not about the offensive line, it's Zach Wilson. Like, I don't get the logic behind all
but
of
that's
it.
what I'm
They're
trying to
both
say,
running
that
for their
like,
lives all day today.
right, but that's what I'm trying to say, that like
essentially had about the same statistics.
the reason I say that is because we have a comparison in game. That's the reason I bring it up. You know, it'd be one thing if
with 2 interceptions, he got sacked twice. I mean,
well, the second interception really shouldn't count. First of all, because it's
there's always this what should and shouldn't count.
Hold on.
Why is that? Why do we always do that with the backups? Like, there's because
it's not that. That's not the reason. I didn't say that it's because of Simeon. It's because it's in garbage time.
First awful interception where he like overthrew him by like 5 yards, and
he still had 110 yards of offense, of passing yards, versus 26. And with the exception of 1 minute in the first half, that's equal time to Zach with the same O-line from the same day, against the same team. So that's what I'm trying to say.
Game though, like okay, whatever. Moving on. Zach Wilson sucks. Whatever. I don't get the harping on the Zach Wilson and how Trevor Siemian is that much better with a 14 for whatever the hell. I think it was 14 for 27 with like 110 yards, 2 interceptions, sacked twice. Okay. The
only reason I say it is because you say that you don't get it, and I'm trying to give you the example from the game in real time. That's why, But
it's like not a much better stat line, and if you want to go for pure QB rating, his was actually worse than Zach Wilson's. Like, so it doesn't
I don't
get
know.
a better result.
He had about
still 0 points. Like, I don't really understand why. They both sucked.
Yeah, I know that they both.
The Dolphins walked all over this team all day. And that was kind of that.
All right. I mean, okay. I don't know what to say. You say that you don't see the logic, and I'm trying to give you the logic behind it.
Well, but
then you don't want to hear the logic.
You're like, what is the I guess the point of the argument constantly? Like, we know Zach Wilson is not the guy. Like, I get that. But Trevor Siemian is not the guy either. The reason I'm bringing it up is because there's nothing else to talk about. That's why. He wouldn't have won the game.
I'm gonna pivot to all right, so then what now? Because there's no more season. We have your answers on all your quarterbacks, including Simeon, all your backups, everything.
They're all terrible.
What now?
Nobody's gonna win. Maybe Aaron Rodgers could come back just to like.
He's not coming back at all. Now with those facial expressions and reactions from sideline.
Well,
I'm just saying, that's the reason we're talking about it, because there's literally, I can understand like maybe a week ago, there's still something that you can talk about outside of the quarterback situation, right? You still have like the 0.01% chance of playoffs. But now that you're eliminated, and now that it seems that the answers on all the QBs in your room is answered, and I think that even the answers, I think on the front office and the coaching, you have a lot of those answers. What do you want to see done in the offseason?
I mean, you have to kind of think about what's going on in the next couple of weeks too, because if Zach Wilson is actually out next week and has a concussion, that means that Aaron Rodgers will probably be our emergency quarterback. We have Trevor Siemian, we have Brett Rippon, and then we have Aaron Rodgers. We have 3 quarterbacks. I think we signed Brett Rippon out to the practice squad and as our emergency quarterback. So we have 3. Yeah, we have 3.
Remember that the emergency quarterback doesn't need to be signed, though. Remember that. Like that was a rule that was changed, and it's an option, but it's not guaranteed that they're going to put a third quarterback on there. I don't think.
I know. But
I'm just saying. I don't think that Aaron Rodgers gets dressed at all, and I believe this Wednesday is the deadline to add to activate him for the rest of the season. So,
is it? Like,
they announced they had said it during the broadcast. that this Wednesday is the deadline to activate anybody off of the injury report or injury reserve to activate them for the season. After this Wednesday, anybody that's on injury reserve can't be reactivated.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, it's kind of hard to talk about what even the future is. This team is eliminated. We have the same problems for the most part. Like you have maybe a more certain QB room in on the Giants side because you have Daniel Jones, you have a decent backup in Tommy DeVito. Clearly, you have a decent backup in Tyrod Taylor when he can stay healthy, which is not very often, but it is what it is. He's probably not going to be here next year anyway. I think his contract is up. But I mean, the Jets and the Giants are in semi-similar situations when it comes to like what do you do in the draft upcoming, right? You don't want to talk about what's going on with the Giants in the offseason, but there's still this. We're near the bottom of the league right now, both of our teams. There's no hope for us. There's some hope for you. And it's kind of like what do you want to do to address the issues on this team? Because again, I feel like you have to look at the issues with the offensive line on both sides of both of these teams and say to yourself, you know, is anybody really going to be successful on the team like this other than like a true like really a Mahomes? Like who the hell else can be completely successful with absolutely no offensive line, take a team to the playoffs, take a team, like not just take the team to the playoffs and maybe losing a divisional round, losing a wild card, losing a conference game, but like actually take our teams to the Super Bowl, which is ultimately the goal, right? Like we don't give a shit about like, hey, this quarterback, this offensive line, these guys can take us to like the conference championships. Nobody cares about that. With this offensive line, with either of these teams, it's not going to happen. I don't really care who's back there. I don't care if it's Aaron Rodgers. I don't care if you're talking about Caleb Williams next year, Bo Nix, whoever the hell is behind the offensive line on either of these teams, right? Unless you have, again, somebody who's truly can extend any play. And the only person that can do that consistently is Patrick Mahomes because he's in a similar situation. He has no wide receivers. He has a decent offense, a much better offensive line, but he is still managing to somehow win games. You see other quarterbacks struggle. Jalen Hurts struggles. Josh Allen struggles. You know, Dak Prescott has his struggles in games when the pressure is on and you game plan against him. The only person that you can't actually game plan against in any situation is Mahomes. I know I'm harping on this, right? But like, what do you really plan for in the future if you can't figure out how to either A, keep these offensive lines healthy, or B, even get a steady offensive line in the first place? I mean, we have completely busted offensive linemen on both of our teams this year that were supposed to actually give us something, like a Becton on our side, like an Evan Neal on your side. Like how it's really hard to know what to do going forward. I think,
but that's the thing. Like I'm asking the whole offseason, not just the draft, right? Because I think, like if it was me and I'm a Jets fan, I'm not going to call for anything because I'm not a Jets fan. But if I was a Jets fan, I would say there's enough already. There's enough damage done, and I would say enough trauma done that it's blow everything up. Get rid of Joe Douglas, get rid of the coaching staff, keep whatever you keep on the team, and just blow it up. I think that like you have too many good pieces on your team to squander it with management that really doesn't know what they're doing, it seems like. I think that the coaches have a lot of good strengths. Again, the special teams and your defense didn't just wake up one day and be like this. Okay, that's due to your coaching staff. And you didn't just like pick and choose from the draft. Joe Douglas got these people on your team, but they're faltering in some other places. And I think that the bad is too bad compared to the good. And I think that I would want to see, you know, a new GM, new head coach go in there. It's kind of the same thing that the Giants did, getting Dable and Shane in there to evaluate what was on the team, including Daniel Jones, and then, you know, making something of it, and then going from there. So that's why my biggest thing is we already know what you have to address in the draft. Okay, whether you take a QB or not, top two priority is going to be your offensive line protection. You just need offensive line protection and depth. We both need that. However, again, for the Giants, I know I'm confident in the front office and the coaching staff that's going to pick those people. I'm not confident in Joe Douglas and the staff and company to pick these people and then develop them. So
Like, I mean, I feel like that's an unfair assessment because we're kind of in the same boat. We don't have offensive lines. You're slightly more sure about what's going on with your quarterback room. You're less sure of what's going on with your wide receivers than we are, even somehow, because we at least have one piece that we understand is going to be like the future there. Defensively, we're both in kind of the same boat. And like, it's a similar thing because if you look at it again, it is that same chicken and egg situation. You even said it yourself. Yes, they are issues with the coaching. There's issues with the front office, but there's also Breece Hall, Quincy Williams, Quinnen Williams, Garrett Wilson. There's these home run players that were drafted by a Joe Douglas, that were developed by a Saleh and his coaching staff. It's hard to completely blow up the entire experiment, I think, because like everyone says, this was supposed to be an Aaron Rodgers-led team. Offensive line obliterated by injuries. Like, none of this was really supposed to turn out the way that it did. We lost three things that we were counting on. Our starting quarterback within the first 4 plays, Davis, who retired, and an offensive line that has been as much of a turnstile, not just, in letting people sack the quarterback, but in terms of how many different people have cycled into that offensive line. It's the same damn situation. You can't say one or the other.
But the thing is, it's not, because let me ask you this. Even as a Jets fan, okay, do you feel like there's a question about the leadership on the Giants?
Do I feel like there's a question about the leadership on the Giants? Like,
do you think that Dable or Joe Schoen will lose their jobs in the next 3 years?
In the next 3 years? I mean, possibly. What do you mean in the next 3 years?
Really? You think so? Because I don't think a single Giants fan would question that they're going to be our leadership for the next 5 years.
If you have another bad year next year, Dable and Shane are out. I mean, you can't be that delusional.
No, absolutely. I don't think so at all. I don't think so at all, because the thing is, like, the thing is that I think that we came in, we had a bad year this year, obviously, but we came in with much less than you guys did. And for some reason, like the Giants, none of the Giants fan really feel that bad about this.
You're going to give Dable and Shane 7 years, and you're going to give Joe Douglas and Robert Saleh 3. This is what you're telling me? Like,
because you guys whiffing so bad.
You got one playoff appearance so far, right? With Dable,
right?
Okay, so what are we talking about here? Again, you can't give a man a 5-year advance on his contract for one.
Because I don't think that we have that. I don't think that we have that big of a question when it comes to our coaching staff and the front office. That's
you have again one playoff win.
But that's circumstantial, right? Like,
5 years is way too much to say. Like, okay, no matter what happens with this team in the next 2 years, I'm
pretty confident. I'm pretty confident that the vast majority, we can put a poll out there if we want, the vast majority of Giant fans, as well as professionals, have no question about Dable and Shane, and I think that it's rightfully so. There's a reason why in the locker room.
Agree with that. If you have 3 bad seasons or 2 bad seasons after this, they're out. There's none of this 5 years.
No, that's absolutely true. That's absolutely true. However, I don't think that we're gonna have bad seasons like that. Not like this one. I don't think that we're gonna like that would be an insane anomaly to have the kind of like our issue. You guys had a quarterback that went down because of an Achilles. Okay, one quarterback, and then the rest of it was just really bad quarterback play, really bad coaching, really bad offensive coordination. Right? For us, we lost everything. And however, our locker room is still intact. We don't have any issues with the trust behind the players with each other and the players on the coaching staff. And I think that the perception is that Joe Schoen very much knows what he's doing. Whereas with the Jets,
it's all very much anecdotal. I mean,
no, not at all.
How's
this anecdotal?
Because the results are the same. Again, if these two,
the results are the same, so the circumstances are not
next
the same.
Year, they're just as much out as any Saleh Douglas led Jets team.
No,
Like
but the circumstances are different. That's why, because we don't have one of the top corners in the entire game. We don't have one of the top receivers in the game. We have one of the top running backs in the game, just like you guys do. But we don't have like a lot of the top players that you guys have. Not to mention that you guys also happen to
I
have a
mean, I
Hall
don't
of
know.
Fame quarterback, right?
It's very much splitting hairs. I think the results are still the same.
That's
Next
not
year, if
splitting
they have
hairs
a
at
bad
all.
situation, it
Not
very much
at
is splitting hairs. You guys are
all.
still like have this essentially the same. We both have the same record. Like,
Yeah, we had a
all right,
way tougher schedule than you guys did by a mile.
our strength of schedule was 4-5 at the beginning of the season. We went over this. No,
Man, I
we
don't know.
did go over this.
I think,
We
yeah,
could
but
put
I
that
think
graphic up.
I think
Like
that
this
was I think that was
yeah, this is
I think
splitting
that was
hairs.
I don't know. I don't think so, man.
Because
I don't
strength
think
of
so.
schedule was 4-5. We went over this in the schedule release
I
at
don't
the
know,
beginning of the
man.
season.
That's
And we were
I
actually a
would like to
tick
revisit
harder.
that then, because I don't think that there really
No,
was
we
another team
were a
that
tick
had a worse
harder than your
schedule than
strength
the
of
Giants.
schedule. Absolutely. I remember this. We can go back to that
Okay,
episode.
all
Like,
right.
but both
I
strengths
don't
of
think that it's
schedule were
splitting hairs.
different. You know what I mean?
I'm going
Almost
to agree to
equivalent.
disagree. I again, I don't like I said, I don't have a lot of stuff went wrong in this season for the Giants, but I do not feel as shaky as most Jets fans do about their team.
I don't know. If you feel confident about having the worst offense in the league compared to our second worst or whatever the hell it is, worst
Mhm.
and second worst, either way around, then I don't know where you place your confidence, honestly, because
Well,
there's no
because
putting
we're still in
confidence
an
in
actual
anything there.
rebuild, and Daniel Jones hasn't had a chance to truly be who he can be, and the
You weren't in a
circumstances of
rebuild at the
Daniel
beginning
Jones
of the
going down
season.
twice the
No,
way
no,
that he
no, no,
did,
no, no, no,
Terod
no,
Taylor
no.
going down the way that
We
he did.
can't do this revisionist history. There was none of
It's
this.
not
You in a
revisionist history. Are you
rebuild.
kidding me?
You
How
guys
is
made
this
the
revisionist
playoffs last
history?
year. How's that
Huh?
being in a rebuild? You guys made a playoff game last year.
Yeah,
Again,
exactly.
not
And that's why
last
we
year.
made a playoff game with a shit team that had absolutely nothing. And the only thing that we had was Daniel Jones and Saquon Barkley. We're literally in a rebuild. They got brought in to
All right.
rebuild this team, and we drafted a bunch of pieces. Some of
Yeah.
that worked out, some of that has not worked out, and we're gonna still keep having to draft. It's
Maybe in
part
the
of the
later
rebuild.
stages of the
However, you
rebuild, but
guys,
I don't know where any of this was at the beginning of the season because there was no talk about
because
rebuild.
because it was because it was like, okay, yes, we obviously went in there into the season. I went into this season wanting more than what we did last year, but you guys said it yourself. You guys that we overachieved, and we did. We obviously we overachieved last season, and this is really the Giants that we are. But we are in a rebuild. There's no question about it. However, you guys are not in a rebuild. You will be very soon, but you're not. You guys have almost all the pieces that you guys need. And the biggest questions that you guys have is on coaching and direction. We don't have those questions.
At the beginning of the season, we both predicted that the Giants were going to go to 11-6. So
Right, I
rebuild, I
understand
guess.
that, but that's
Again,
also me
agree
being
to
that was me
disagree.
being hopeful, right? That's me being.
11-6 rebuilds. It doesn't. It's not what it looks
You
like to me.
think
But
that we weren't in a rebuild?
you're not at the beginning of a rebuild. You have a quarterback, you have a running back, you have a defense, you have a tight end. You're missing a wide receiver. You're missing.
We just got this defense. We're developing all of that right now.
Last year's defense wasn't this bad though. Like, I mean, you had Dex last year. You had a lot of these.
Yeah,
Same
we
pieces
had
on
Dex
defense
last year,
You had the
and
same
then we
defensive
lost. We
coordinator
lost
last year.
Julian Love, and we got look. Flott is new. Banks is new. Kayvon Thibodeau in his second year. You know, these are all still brand new pieces, huh?
Yeah, his second year. I mean, like,
we're in a rebuild. A rebuild doesn't happen in one season. A rebuild happens over 3 to 5. We are in a rebuild. You guys are not. That's what I'm trying to say.
I again, I don't really see what the effective difference is other than we drafted a wide receiver. That's the only difference.
Okay.
Call it.
I mean, you think that we have? I mean, we've been saying it all season. You think that we have an equal offense to you guys from weapon standpoint?
We have a wide receiver that's better than yours, but like, other than that, what do we have? We don't have a tight end that's equal to Waller. We have a running back that's maybe close to yours. That's what I'm saying. Like the pieces, if you put them side by side, we have a wide receiver, you have a tight end. Like, our offensive lines both suck. Yes, we have Aaron Rodgers, but y'all had the $40 million, Daniel Jones at the beginning of the season. Injuries decimated that for the quarterbacks. Injuries decimated that for both offensive lines. But like when you put the pieces together next to each other, it's really not that different. It's really not.
I mean, sure. I mean, like I said, I'm gonna agree to disagree because we're definitely not gonna see eye to eye on this one. I can't believe that you think that the Giants are not in a rebuild and that the Jets and that neither are the Jets, I guess. I mean, I don't think that the Jets are in a rebuild. I don't see how even though both teams record-wise are in the same place, I don't see how we're in the same phase of our team development. That's where I disagree with you.
This is the first year that we put this team together, including Aaron Rodgers. So same phase, just like you with all the rookies you got.
Yeah, but you guys got a bunch of veterans. You're not in a rebuild. You're in a mercenary year. You're hire everyone for Super Bowl.
I mean, just because veterans are there doesn't mean that.
But that's not a rebuild. That's a patchwork to try to win this year. That's the difference.
I guess.
That's like the LA Rams. Like LA Rams gave up everything in order to win the Super Bowl. That's not
every detail is the same. The Giants were trying to win this year also. It's not like,
well, we're all trying to win, but the difference is how we're doing it versus how you're doing it. That's the difference. We're doing it by trying to develop talent over time. You guys are trying to do it by getting everything that you can, big high pieces this season and win this year. That's the difference, right? Like the vast majority of a team is going to be gone next year.
We got Aaron Rodgers and we got a couple of veterans to that aren't even
not just a couple, man.
What superstar veteran did we sign besides Aaron Rodgers?
No, it doesn't have to be superstar veteran, but veterans, right? I mean, you guys got Dalvin Cook for a reason. You guys got Randall Cobb for a reason. You guys got all of Aaron Rodgers' friends for a reason. This wasn't
penalties.
These were all right, but these were all done to win this year a Super Bowl, not to rebuild this team.
But they weren't expected to be in the position that they are.
I understand that. I'm not saying
like effectively.
But Jose, again, what I'm trying to tell you is that I understand that they weren't
talking about developing players. Quincy Williams, Garrett Wilson, Breece Hall, Jermaine Johnson, like. We're developing players too. We're also in a rebuild. Like when you look at the pieces, it's again the same thing.
You're not in a rebuild yet, man. You guys are in a Super Bowl or bust right now. If you guys were in a rebuild, you would never have gotten Aaron Rodgers and all of his teams or all of his friends. That's not rebuild at all. At all. If you were in a rebuild, you save, you build and you save and everything. You don't hedge the entire team in order to bring in all these pieces to try to win this year or next year. And this is from Woody's mouth himself. Okay, this is from Woody's mouth himself that we are going to the Super Bowl in the next 3 years.
Okay,
that's not rebuild mindset.
In the next 3 years, coming out of the mouth of the owner doesn't affect what the actual effective things being done behind the scenes.
I'm gonna stop right here. I say agree to disagree because
let's move on. We both said they were going to be 11-6 at the beginning of the season, but we'll agree.
Right, a prediction's a prediction, but we also couldn't predict what happened in the season. That doesn't change. That doesn't change what the teams are doing. Like this is what I would have wanted to see out of our team that we're rebuilding. And the record that I saw that I had predicted for you guys is what I would have wanted to see from the Jets out of a team that's trying to win right now. So, but anyway, what do we got? What do we got going forward, right? Because we got the Giants have already freaking forgot on my head. We got the Eagles on Monday.
You got to win out this game and beat Marcus Mariota, possibly. I guess if.
No, I think Jalen Hurts plays.
Doesn't play.
I think Jalen Hurts plays. I think that he sits out the last 2 games.
Who do you think is going to be? Well, I guess it's going to be Devito at the quarterback this week again. And
I don't think so. I would not be
Taylor out there.
I would not be surprised if they do like extended concussion protocol test on Devito. They look at the tape and they decide that what, we're going to sit you out and put Tyrod Taylor out. Right? Tyrod is healthy. Tyrod is fresh and stuff. DeVito's banged up off of this game, and again, most likely going to be in concussion protocol. I think that we probably end up seeing Tyrod Taylor with DeVito suited up, possibly to have to come in the second half if things are really, really bad. But I don't think that DeVito starts next week.
I mean, do you think that that's really the move if you want to actually try to make the playoffs, to play Tyrod Taylor off the bench when DeVito's giving you more success, or is this more
No.
like
I think again, I think that
your
it's going to be
quarterback?
no. It's not the what I want. I would want DeVito, but I think that based off of seeing not seeing his performance, but seeing how he was moving, how slow he was to react, and the fact that they had to test him for concussions. Again, players are going to tell you what they want, what the doctors want to hear in game in order to get themselves back out on the field. Like shoulders clicking, but they're going to tell it, yeah, I'm good. Look, my arm is good. Even though they're feeling pain, they're going to fight through it because they want to play. But in this week, when they're going to do more tests, more kind of expanded tests on DeVito, as well as look at the tape and probably see that he's wobbly, he's banged up, and all that. I think that they're going to make the decision for him. I think that DeVito's been great, and especially playing here in on the East Coast, because even though it's the Eagles and it's Philly and stuff like that, Philly is full of Italians. So I think that we're gonna have if we were to play DeVito, now we would have probably a better chance with DeVito in Philly with the Italian heritage and everything than we would with Tyrod. I just don't think that they would allow
like Rocky.
Yeah, right. Could you imagine? Besides, I think that again, being over here in Philly, I mean, you're gonna see the entire DeVito family going down to the Eagles just to root DeVito if he's playing.
What does this say then for the Giants' chances of winning this game? If you feel that Tyrod's going to be playing this game and you guys have to win out these next 3 games, what are your thoughts?
Well, I put it less on the quarterback and I put it on the defense. Same thing as with the Jets. Our offensive line and our offense in general is not great to win the games on their own, but our defense can be. And I think that if the Eagles are pretty banged up, I think our defense is actually not that banged up. But I think that if our defense can put the pressure on the Eagles. Offensive line is a little banged up. Jalen Hurts possibly banged up as well. I think that we could put enough pressure in order to maybe get some takeaways and as long as DeVito has done what he's been doing, or rather, as long as the Giants do what they've been doing, which is protecting the ball, right? No interceptions, no fumbles. If we can keep the protection alive and the defense can get a few takeaways and do what the Jets did, which is win this game for us. I think that that's how we win. I wouldn't put it on DeVito or Tyrod Taylor, especially with this offense, to go out there and win the game for us. But I would put it on them to manage it and have the defense win it for us.
I think I earlier in the season and in our postseason thoughts on what happened in this game, I did predict that the Giants were going to lose this one and win at home on the last game of the season. I don't think that's going to change. I think that your defense is better than I expected it to be, but your offense is worse. So it kind of becomes a wash. And sure, the Eagles are maybe not as good as they could be, but in Philadelphia, y'all don't have the best track record against the Eagles or Jalen Hurts. Yeah. I think you still have a good chance at home at the end of the season, but I think this is going to be a tough game, especially if you have hasn't been in there for a little bit, Tyrod Taylor, and maybe at best a banged up Tommy Cutlets.
We'll see. And then for the Jets, you guys got the Commanders that are they're visiting over here. So the Commanders also defeated, also eliminated. Neither teams have really anything to look for except for their own records for the rest of the season, each individual player for the rest of the season. But it's the Commanders. I think that your defense trounces the Commanders. So as long as the defense shows up and shows up to get paid, the Jets will. I think that the Jets will come out on top. Too little, too late, but I think that they will end up winning out against the Commanders.
I mean, if it's a win, it's a 6-3 kind of affair, but I mean, it's really hard to predict what the hell you're going to get because you're either going to get a sort of okay like offensive line that plays like in the bottom third at best, or like absolute worst offensive line of the week, like we got out of both of our teams this week. I mean, I'm going to have to give it to the Commanders. It's just too much
Really?
inconsistency from the offensive line. The Commanders are not a great team, but I mean, neither are the Jets, and we've shown that we can lose 2 bad teams even this year.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, at this point, there's definitely nothing to play for. I mean, the defense probably isn't going to break their own backs for absolutely nothing to play for next week, other than what, a little bit of pride. They're already
No, I mean,
kinda
again, they're their own
slowing
paychecks,
down a
right?
little
Like
bit.
their careers and their paychecks are directly related to their stats. That's why they play every snap. I mean, more so than any other part of phase of a team. Defensive players, they tend to play every single snap, because for them, every tackle, every interception, every pressure, all that stuff, that's whether you guys are winning or losing. For the defensive players, that's their livelihood right there. So that's why I think that the Jets do win, because when there's nothing to play for, defense still does.
I mean, the only thing I can say is that we have a lot of those defensive players still snapped up next year. So I guess we'll see who decides to show up and who decides to actually put it on the field this week, or who said, you know what, I'm not getting any extra money next year in the offseason. I'm already an option or a second year contract, rookie contract, or something like that. I mean, there's nothing to look forward to for Jets fans anymore.
I think that at least we can, the one thing, the one good thing that's come out of this, I think that we can finally stop being miserable, since it's officially over.
Just kind of like move on to like Nirvana, Zen kind of.
I mean, I don't know about that. You know what?
At this point,
you know what this is? This is move on to a darkness retreat.
Something with Dolphins. All right. Well, I guess that's where we can wrap this whole affair up. Thanks, y'all, once again for joining the Blue versus Green show, joining myself, Jose, and joining my co-host on this side over here, Gabe. Please remember, as always, if you enjoyed this podcast, of course, and if you've gotten this far, we hope that you've enjoyed everything that you've heard, to like, rate, share, and subscribe. Hit the notification bell. Do everything you can. Comment. We love to reach back out to y'all and respond to your comments. So let us know. And well, I guess with nothing left to play for us, but with something left to play for the blue side, let's say go Giants.
Go Giants. And go Jets.
Jets.
Peace.
Y'all.